And I think it's 10 o'clock, and I know everybody's busy. This is a busy day for everybody. We're all running in different directions. And Representative Bonner is on the Zoom call, and I think a lot of people at Rules, but because of the schedule, we're not going to wait for them. We're just going to get going and move along right along, because I know y'all are real busy and appreciate the job you're doing. Representative Gilliard, would you just say us a few words of prayer before we get started?
Yes, ma'am. Let us pray. Lord, we thank you for allowing us to be here as stewards over your decisions on today. Guide us in every way, and we thank you for allowing us to have this opportunity. Continue to pray for our state, our leaders, and our nation. In your name we pray. Amen.
Thank you. First, we have Commissioner Nunn. Your affairs, and in your tracking sheet, let's see what page it's on.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Madam Chair. And working off of y'all's tracking sheet, Representative Gilliard, Representative Bonner, good to see y'all. I will be relatively brief and take questions. Appreciate the support that the legislature has shown for the department. We have been very busy, and I'm actually headed to our board meeting as soon as I depart here. Looking at the FY23 budget request, these are fairly simple and all enterprise changes, statewide changes. I will, touch on these under 16.1 under building construction, and then I'll just point to the fact that these flow throughout each of the program budgets in our community affairs budget. The first is the 16.1.1, the increase of funds to provide a $5,000 cost of living adjustment for all full-time benefit eligible state employees effective July 1st. Under building construction, that represents a $21,368 increase throughout Section 16. That represents a $790,086 increase. The second line item, which I think is a very smart move, dealing with allowing state employees to withdraw up to 40 hours of earned annual leave. Of course, we have accrued a lot of annual leave over the last couple of years during the pandemic, and this also gives us an additional lever. Under building construction, that represents a $2,963 increase recommendation. Collectively in Section 17 in our budget is $63,315. 16.1.3 is the ERS change to fully fund the actuarially determined employer contribution, provide for the cost of living adjustment for retirees, and increase the employer 401k match for the GSEPS employees. This under building construction is reflected as $11,200 increase. Collectively, that's $455,375. Items 4 and 5 are both enterprise just adjustments to DOAS and TeamWorks billings, and collectively those represent a reduction of $7,600 and change and an increase in $3,100 and change. Again, those employee-related changes flow throughout our budget and represent are the only changes that we're recommending in the 23 in our 23 budget recommendations. Madam Chair, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Well, I just have one question. How are you planning to cover the cost of living? I'm not the cost of living, the $5,000 raise for your federal employees that are paid partly federal. I know that's a problem.
Yes, ma'am. And I appreciate the question. That as you're familiar, based on that question, DCA has a large number of full-time state employees that address a variety of different programs that are funded through different sources. That gap is somewhere in the neighborhood of $3 to $3.5 million. And we are still putting our heads together over, how we might administer that piece. So that I don't have a clear answer for you right now.
And one other question, I'm not sure what you call the program where people, homeowners who were affected by COVID can apply for some CARES money. How is that program going?
Absolutely. So appreciate your asking. And actually two programs, one that's aimed at renters that is
Yeah.
slightly more mature. We launched that about 11 months ago. And then the homeowner program, which you're specifically asking about, is about 4 weeks old. It took Treasury 5 or 6 months to approve our plan, ours and every other state's. And that program is going well. We've had roughly 6,000 applications to date. About half of those have been completed. The rest, there's some back and forth for some documentation and detail. I know that we have already paid out 300 to 400 of those, representing roughly $4 to $5 million, and are continuing to work with servicers and homeowners alike to address those COVID-related needs. So that is very much off to a good start.
Well, if my constituents wanted to go, where would they go to?
Absolutely. So for your constituents who are homeowners, have a mortgage, it is Georgia Mortgage Assistance, spelled out, Georgia Mortgage Assistance.ga.gov, G-O-V. And likewise, on the rental assistance side, there is we have ample funds available, and would encourage those individuals who are your constituents to apply at Georgia Rental Assistance, all spelled out, .ga.gov.
Okay, I have a couple of questions. Representative Gillian.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Commissioner Nunn, it's always a privilege to see someone who is doing a tremendous job in leadership with DCA. We have, according to your leadership in Savannah, Georgia, Madam Chair, we've done 244 persons in the Georgia Dream Program, giving them $15,000 down payment assistance. So thank you for allowing us to do that. Matter of fact, this Friday, your Dream Program will be in our district again. We're hosting that again. And the rental assistance, Ms. Patterson's been doing a tremendous job. So I want to commend you. I don't know how you do it. I think all of these employees, $5,000 is a good start for what they do. But we're definitely taking advantage of the programs that you have in DCA.
Well, thank you, Representative Gilliard. And first of all, thank you for the continued partnership, and thank you for the kudos. The way that we do that is through an amazing team of dedicated people at DCA, working in partnership with amazing partners throughout the state. You referenced the Georgia Dream Program. That is, over the last, I think it's 5 years, we have housed first-time home buyers, more than 7,500 all across the state. That is a very effective program. It is a very good program. I'll tell you, it is also emblematic of the challenges that we have from an affordable housing standpoint in the state of just housing stock available. And that's something that we are constantly attuned to. So thanks for your partnership.
And Madam Chair, if I could just say one more thing. So when we partnered with Georgia Dream, there was a great personality on one of our radio stations who was running the PSAs over and over and over. Well, she benefited. She actually purchased a home. The bulk of those purchases were women. 99% were single mothers. So thank you once again.
Thank you.
Representative Gulick.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Quick question. I know I came in late, so I'm sorry if I missed it. On the rental piece, at one point, I don't know if you guys were taking more applications at some point. You guys were full, I guess, had applications for processing those through. Is that still the case? Is there a backlog of like how many people need this versus although there's money available, is money available for the people who've already kind of got in line?
There's ample funds available. That's why I shared, please encourage people to apply. Very quickly to speak about the question about backlog. When this program opened up, which was the program did not exist until it was signed into law on December 27th of 2020. The Treasury rules were put out in late January of 2021, and these programs were stood up with about 4 weeks time in the early part of March. In Georgia, because there were 13 programs that Treasury designated. We didn't designate, Treasury designated We, the state, focused on 148 counties outside of the metro areas, outside of metro Atlanta, Savannah, and Augusta. Because those programs had limited funding, we ended up having to open up, and I say that that was a necessary step. We ended up opening up statewide the latter part of August, and very candidly, that was overwhelming, and it is something that we have continuously been working to address to get the backlog or the turnaround time back to 3 to 4 weeks, which is where we were before we had to open up statewide. We have done a number of things to address that, including, based on some further Treasury guidance, reallocating funds to some of those local programs to keep the local programs in our high renter concentration areas working in those areas. And then we've also continued to bring on additional resources and additional partners to adjudicate those claims. So there is money available, and I would encourage any constituent who meets the criteria of COVID need or need during COVID period to apply at that georgiarentalassistance.ga.gov.
Great. Thank you. And I appreciate it. I'm looking forward to this. I live in Metro Atlanta, or represent Metro Atlanta. So, yeah, I do have some constituents who've just told me about the problems. I haven't actually looked. I just know they said there's a waiting list. That's why I was asking, but I look forward to this, being full-fledged in the.
Absolutely. And I must say, on behalf of the hardworking people that are working 6 days a week, adjudicating those claims and processing those claims, one thing that oft gets undernoticed are the more than 40,000 families that have been assisted by this program over the last 11 months.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And thank you for the job. And hope you get to your meeting on time.
Appreciate it.
Public Service Commission. Good morning.
Thank you, Chairman Houston.
Thank you for coming, and go ahead.
So it's an honor to be with you all today and to talk about the Public Service Commission's FY 2023 budget requests. First off, we want to thank Governor Brian Kemp and the legislature on the proposed budget that includes much needed raises for PSC employees. These funds will help continue to keep the PSC competitive in the job market and better able to perform the work that keeps pipelines safe and keeps rates low. I just returned from DC with commissioners from all across the country, and all commissions are having challenges across the country, finding engineers, finding business analysts. But remarkably, Georgia was lauded for the amount of work that we're doing, for the amount of cases and projects that Georgia's taken on. And we're looking at creative solutions to be able to find and fix our staffing needs. In recent years, the PSC mission has expanded. SB 2 from 2019 added rural broadband duties, and HB 244 from 2020 directed the PSC to settle the longstanding pole attachment fee issue. This was accomplished without additional employees and $90,000 of PSC money that was diverted from unfilled positions. We are looking now at 2022. 2022, we have the Georgia Power Integrated Resource Plan. That is a 20-year strategic plan for the state's electricity needs, as well as not just generation, but transmission and distribution. As you're likely aware, there is a great amount of new technology that's being deployed, not only in Georgia, but across our country, and how it relates to electricity. That's going to make for changes and a more complex IRP than we've ever really seen before. On the heels of that, we'll begin a 2022 Georgia Power rate case that begins in July as we wrap the IRP. We also have a rate adjustment on the Atlanta gas site and the pipeline management for natural gas in our state. And then we still continue our Vogel construction monitoring work. We'll have 2 VCMs this year. We have a VCM decision actually set for tomorrow. And then at the conclusion of VCMs, once units 3 and 4 of Vogel go into service, we'll move into prudency. And that's really where our request comes in at its greatest need. So in the past, the legislature has really assisted the PSC in our work. So just 2 years ago, the PSC asked for $150,000 to fund 2 new call before you dig investigators. Our staff has estimated that those 2 new employees would return $300,000 in new fines to the Treasury when actually they returned $521,000. At the time, we only had 2 investigators in that unit doing GUFPA work. And now with the addition of 4, we've been able to double the amount of work in cases that we've been able to review. When we hold our cases and our hearings on the expansion of Vogel in particular, this is the only new nuclear project of its size and scope in the country. And we have nuclear attorneys and folks that are involved in the project from not just Georgia Power, but their partners and all of the interveners. And our staff is going up against some of the toughest attorneys in the country. But with that, we have a great deal of pride in the work that the staff does. If you're unaware, the way that our staff operates is we have advisory and adversary staff. They present both sides of a case to us so that the 5 commissioners can have a full 360-degree view of what the needs of the case might be so that we can make better informed decisions. That regulatory construct is what is consistent across the country. In preparation for those Vogel hearings, especially prudency, the PSC is asking the General Assembly to return 8 currently unfunded full-time positions that it lost over the past several years. That is a total of $974,781. Although these positions will not directly add to the state treasury in the form of fees and fines, the positions do represent direct savings to the ratepayers of Georgia. When determining when Vogel costs can be passed on to ratepayers, we seek out and argue strong legal positions. And due to the past work that we've done, Georgia Power has agreed to write off $700 million, and the ROE on Vogel construction was reduced, saving the ratepayers an additional $1.7 billion. That is a total of $2.4 billion that Georgia ratepayers have seen savings on their bills. Whether that is the PSC working through the Westinghouse bankruptcy and the considerations that resulted from that, whether that's been on the schedule work and the budget work there at the site. The PSC has continued to hold and represent the best needs of the ratepayers. And to do that, it takes work, it takes staff, it takes research, it takes analysis. So the direct link that exists between the number of analysts and lawyers at the PSC is discoverable savings for ratepayers and for all of Georgians. And so I hope that this committee, the subcommittee, would consider our request.
Questions? Representative Gilliard.
Chair, those 8 positions that were underfunded years ago, those are just everyday staff positions that are essential to the function of the PSC?
Yes, sir. They are broken out between utilities analysts and engineers. Each of our units, whether it be for natural gas, electricity, telecom, or pipeline safety GUFPA, they have a combination of engineers and analysts in them. The analysts do the financial work, the engineers do the spec work.
Well, thank you for your work. And my good friend Tim Eccles, tell him I'm going to look at that electric car one day.
He sure would like you to have one.
Do I have any other questions? Well, I appreciate the job y'all are doing, and I think everybody understands the need, at least on our committee, that y'all need more employees.
Well, thank you.
And I hope we can work something out because it's really needed. And thank you for the money you've saved the Georgia taxpayers. And you're doing a great job.
Oh,
Thank you.
well, thank you, Chairman Houston. That means a lot coming from you for sure.
Thank you.
We will continue to press on and do the good work.
Any other comments? Okay, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
Commissioner Wilson.
Good morning. Chairman Houston, thank you, and the committee, thank you for continued support and all the great things that y'all have done to make our job at economic development a little bit easier. Every year, we really have been blessed with the support of the General Assembly, and we're grateful for that. And it's an honor to follow two of our economic development partners, Christopher Nunn and DCA, do an amazing job, but our PSC has been extremely helpful for what we do as well. And I think one of the reasons we remain extremely competitive is that we have very competitive rates for energy in this state, plus a mix of renewables that is enviable to a lot of our sister states. So Representative Houston, let me get started. This is probably the easiest budget that I've had to present in my years of the department. We don't have a lot of major changes, just like everybody else. Most of them are statewide changes. We have the increase in funds for cost of living adjustment, the $5,000 raises for employees. We have the 40-hour earned leave opportunity, which I think is very well found. And then the changes to 401k and the increased matches. All of those things, as I've said in the past, these are needed in order for us to remain competitive and continue to attract some of the best and the brightest to work at our departments. I was with Governor Perdue when we made the changes to the pension plan originally, and the intention was always to continue to increase the front end so that we remain competitive. And so it really is I think, great for the governor to recommend. And I appreciate the General Assembly's continued work to move in that direction. So the only other add that we have in the budget is under our rural development, the rural development team. And so this is line 23.7.5, provide funds for 2 positions to support the Rivian Economic Development Project. This has been this is an amazing project for the state of Georgia. This plant that will be in East Atlanta is going to provide 7,500 new jobs for the state in the automotive sector, in the middle of a major change in what is going to be the future of automotive. So we're very excited. I was just in Normal, Illinois yesterday visiting with the company, got to drive my first Rivian, which was pretty amazing. It is a fantastic company with their company ethos fits what we want to do here in Georgia, and we're very excited about it. These 2 positions, one will focus on the project itself, making sure that all of the promises that the state has made and that the company has made come to fruition. It's a project manager to continue to make sure that we get this facility built. As you can imagine, in an opportunity this large, there are a number of state agencies that come into play, and this would be a project coordinator. And just like we did for Kia, to manage that project from on the ground in Social Circle. The second project or the second position would be a workforce position focused on hiring those 7,500 people to make sure that we leverage all state resources in order to find 7,500 people, skill them, and get them employed by the company. And so those are really the only ads that we have in the budget, Chairman Houston, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Representative Golick, it's 24, I think, aren't you? All right, thank you.
Just a quick question related to those positions. You said we did that for Kia as well. Is that right?
That's right.
So what happens when Rivian or when Kia was up full and running? Do those positions get reabsorbed or they get reallocated for other work? What happens to them?
So there's only a commitment in our conditions with Rivian that it will be there for 6 years.
Okay.
And so after that, then the funding would go
Hopefully we
away.
have other projects that we can.
Well, that's exactly. I hope we can reposition those to the next awesome project.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have one question. What are the I see that for these 2 positions, you want $448,000. What are the qualifications for this job?
Well, both of these would be senior level positions. These are people who, and I'm going to focus on workforce first. I think I started this conversation by talking about being competitive, and the salaries for these positions are going to be a little higher than most of the salaries in the department, but that's because we need people who are competent and have a background in these areas in order to oversee it. And so, especially the workforce position, where I would look for somebody who has done workforce at the state level for a long time, or potentially a corporate HR person to come in and assist. But the key is being able to hit the ground running. So we don't necessarily need to find a junior person to train. And so that's why the salaries are higher than most of the folks in the department.
Any other questions? I have one other question. And know in the supplemental budget, y'all were having trouble getting people to work in global commerce and had a lot of positions. Do y'all still have as many contracts in global commerce as you did, or you had to let some contracts go, or what?
Our international contracts?
Yeah.
During the recession, we have never closed an office that we opened, and I think that's a point of pride for the state of Georgia. During the recession, we had to make a few adjustments in those contracts. We did not close them or during the pandemic. So the contracts remain the same. We have the same strategic markets that we've continued to focus on around the world.
What about your connection with China and your contracts with China? Have they changed any?
So the Chinese contract was split in two. We have the trade team, which focuses on helping Georgia companies sell into China, and that's remained the same. What we've done with the Chinese contract in foreign direct investment is really reposition that to the United States. We have a Georgia, a U.S. citizen of Chinese nationality who manages that out of the Atlanta office. And of course, things have changed a lot over the last 2 years. And we've actually seen more activity for Chinese companies looking to invest in Georgia than we've probably ever seen, even when we had the office over there. If you look at the kind of the long-term growth of this, I think we've positioned it well now. We cut the cost tremendously and repositioned those funds into Korea, which is the hottest market that we have. And so I think we're, just because we never close an office doesn't mean we don't right size it based on what's going on in the world. And so I feel like we're strategically where we need to be right now, Chairman.
Thank you. Any questions? Thank you, and thank you for the job you're doing.
Thank you very much.
Commissioner Black is on Zoom. Can we get him on? The
Yes,
Zoom?
ma'am. Good morning, Madam Chair.
Good morning.
Are we dialed in correctly? I'm good on my side.
What? All right. The House media is going to fix it when you start talking.
Okay.
This morning, and anytime you're ready, please go ahead.
Yes, ma'am. Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the committee, and thank you for accommodating this presentation. Much like Commissioner Wilson just said, our changes are really just pretty much perfunctory. So one thing I wanted to point out thank you from the 22 budget that you allowed us to do that transfer from marketing to administration, that 300,000+ that helped balance things out. There's another similar calculation for the 23 budget that just simply annualizes that. So that's maybe one of the changes members might want to note. Madam Chair, my main comments today are, as we spoke in your office a couple of weeks ago, as we were trying to determine on the issues relative to giving our folks a raise, there couldn't be anything more timely. Again, I agree with my colleague, Commissioner Wilson. We want to attract the best and the brightest. We That's a message that I've tried to deliver for now the 12th consecutive budget. Y'all have helped us, and I'm grateful. This is a big help. It's a big shot in the arm to get this done this session for the 23 budget. But there is a however. We, as we did, Madam Chair, in your office that day, we couldn't determine exactly how that was calculated. We are still not sure how it was calculated to go into the original budget document, but what we have provided to Morgan is an analysis of what we believe to be a pretty incredible shortfall, just to make sure we have a message. We've told folks we want to give them a $5,000 raise, but what is appropriated will not allow us to match that message. I mean, the suggestion does not match the message. And so we would be very, certainly we want to work with you, work with House Budget Office. There's even in what was passed in the 22 amended, the timing and the amount of money to take that action even during the balance of 2022 is not enough money to match what needs to match the message. And so I think there's no doubt everybody's intent is good. We're honored by that. Our employees are excited, except that there's the appropriation does not match the message. And so if the committee would allow us in these coming days to work with you and provide the data that Jimmy Wilson, our CFO, he may want to comment just a second, but I know he and Morgan have been working feverishly, and I thank you Morgan, for your communication back and forth. But I hope the committee will allow us to give a really good analysis of what this is, because it's the initial proposal that we're looking at does not adequately fund the $5,000 raise to match the message.
Do I have any questions? Representative Langston.
Morning, Commissioner.
Good morning.
How are you?
Yes, ma'am.
I have a question about our GATE program. Could you give us a little update? Do we still have really good participation in the GATE program for the farmers?
We do, yes, ma'am. And we had, I suppose that right now we're probably in renewals somewhere over 30,000. We wound up the year last year, Representative, with Madam Chair, with about 36,000 statewide, which is where it's, it had hovered there for a while and dropped to about 30, and now is back up in that area. We've gone through that first cycle from the standpoint of y'all, when we changed the fees and implemented a 3-year card. All of that has been pretty much flawless. We've gone through one complete cycle of that now. So everybody, they still get a new card every year, but you only pay once every 3 years, $150 to get that. We had about probably, I'm going to guess, ma'am, 1,800 to 2,000 cards around the end of December. There was a snafu with our contractor that delayed the mailing of some of those cards. I don't think it put anybody in great jeopardy, but it was a couple of week delay where they should have been mailed. They were not. I immediately required the vendor to mail a letter of apology to every one of the card recipients and explain the situation, and they did so. And now I think that problem has been rectified.
Thank you. Could I ask one further question? Could you tell me a little bit about, so are we seeing revenue, a certain amount of revenue that's covering the cost of the program, and what are we?
Oh, yes, ma'am.
And what are we doing with those revenues? Is it?
Okay, we're still, and Jimmy, you might have to catch me on these broad numbers, please. But I think from a standpoint of the cost of the program, what y'all had done, what y'all have done from an appropriation standpoint in the last year is we've always gotten somewhere about 900,000 of the 1.8 million that comes in. But then in last year's budget, y'all, we used those gate funds in a direct line item. Y'all gave those monies back to us to actually do some other things with them. So, and it does show up. Jimmy, would you help me with that? Because it's,
Yes, sir. Those funds, as they come in, we are, even though we're currently not necessarily sending them into the Treasury, our intent is to return all of those funds to the Treasury. Those numbers are up about a little bit over $800,000, I think, over last year, somewhere in that neighborhood. And I guess your question was, yes, we have more than enough funds to really cover our activities at this point.
right.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you, ma'am.
Representative Gilliard.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Commissioner, good morning.
Good morning, sir.
Just an update, any update on the hemp industry? I know that years ago we did some marketing dollars. I know everything was in its inception, and we've been in COVID and just trying to find out where we're at.
Yeah. My friend from Savannah, it is you know, there's a lot of aspirations, but the aspirations from a standpoint of the profit margins have not been realized yet. There's an enormous supply at the farm level. We have over, I think, right now I can get you an update number, somewhere 120 or so licenses that are already in for growers for the 2022 season. The number of processors is dropping. Had a good meeting with Chairman Houston, and I had a good meeting with Chairman Corbett the other day about, you know, maybe taking a look at those processor arrangements again. I don't know during this session, I don't know what the will of the body is going to be on that, but we certainly work with you if you've got some ideas. It's just there's so much product on the market that's not produced here, and that is there's just a flood of that, and we're just not. I don't know that anybody's making any money, just honestly, and I don't know if there's anything we can do to prevent that, promote it. It's a natural part of the process of developing an industry. We finally were able to attract the people that y'all funded last year. We finally got our license coordinator, our law enforcement part-time liaison, and our lawyer, young lawyer, to help us with the interaction with the federal government, with the FBI, and the licensing part of that, because there's a lot of reporting that we have to do with the federal government. But we also returned, I believe, in the supplemental that y'all approved, we returned the $96,000 to the Treasury of what you appropriated last year, just simply because it took us 6 months to find somebody to come to work for what we were willing to pay them. That was a problem. But now all those investments in the infrastructure of the program, they have been annualized. So they're in the 23 budget as an annualized a component of that. But I'd like to be more, I hope we've had one inquiry lately with a company that is beginning to look at the fiber side. That we have to get way beyond just CBD oil if this is going to be successful. And I think it's going to be incumbent upon all of us, in the spirit of my colleague who went just before me, of economic development. Sometimes it takes us to be impatient. You know, it's just not a one-shot deal. Well, that didn't work. I'm going to ask y'all to hang in for a couple more years on this, and let's try to give this thing a chance.
I definitely think you're on it with fiber. That's the next level. So, well, Commissioner, thank you for the inception. We're all in this together, and thank you for your leadership.
Thank you, my friend.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
13.4.8, the Georgia Agriculture Trust Fund, it's $1.8 million. What do you plan to do with that money?
Well, that's the money, Madam Chair, that's that goes to the markets to pay for things with cash rather than borrowing money to operate the farmers markets. That's
So
what y'all approved last year. And then,
Okay.
then this is an annualized part of that. Jimmy? would
we
you-
approved it in
Yes.
House of 511 last year. So this $1.8 goes to the farmers markets.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
That's the-
And Madam Chair, I was just going to say, our plans are really kind of multi-phase. One of the things we have not done in the past years is really doing preventive type maintenance at the markets. We typically fix things that are broke, but we really don't have a preventative maintenance plan. So we're looking to put on staff a facilities individual who has that type of background, who can help us go into all of our markets and develop a preventative plan that will allow us to schedule out some of our maintenance and hopefully mitigate some of the issues where things just break all of the time. That and just continuing to, do the upkeep that is needed all of the various markets.
What, Madam Chair, what this thing, if you remember in all of our discussions of the markets themselves, we've been, the small bonds that y'all have approved, I can speak to 12 years of it. It's been going on much longer than that. The small bonds, $1.5 million, $3 million, those things that y'all have approved, the governors, the current governor and past governors have recommended those every year. Those small bonds of what have been used for maintenance. That's those 20-year bonds. We borrowed money, if you remember, to pave parking lots that last 7 years. And so we've continued to ask the governor. We've had discussions and meetings just like this of, could we keep our fees? Could we do some, things so that we could cash flow these type projects rather than borrowing money? So the governor in this budget had put 1.8, which I'm not exactly sure how all that money's been accounted for the money that's being put in, but it is, let's just call it cash. It's cash that is being put into the agriculture trust fund that y'all created last year that allows for the dedication of fees. And so that money can be rolled over every year. So it's somewhat akin to us being able to keep our fees. It's not exactly the same, but hopefully from a management standpoint, we will be fixing and providing maintenance on a cash basis as opposed to borrowing money to fix things. And I think this is a good step toward that. And Jimmy, anything else? I mean, that's the best explanation I can give you for it.
Well,
So
that was a
that
great
pretty much sums it
explanation, and I agree. We don't want to borrow any more money.
No, ma'am. Madam Chair, could I do,
Yes,
are
please.
there any
Go
more
ahead,
questions?
Jimmy.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Madam Chair, any more questions? If not, I was going to try to share a picture with you. Does anybody?
Did somebody have a comment? Didn't Jimmy want to say something, or did?
No, I'm good. We're good. Thank you.
Okay, all right, thank you. Mr. Wilson, did you want to say something?
Yeah, Madam Chair, can I see if I can share, see if my phone will allow me to share this? I don't yet. Well, let's see if I can share this. Continue. I have let's see if we can get this to share online. Just a moment. Excuse me, just a moment. It is a Sarah Cook, who does a wonderful job in our. Anyway, I don't think it's going to allow me to do it. We have I want to report to you that Sarah Cook, Georgia Grown, is on the international trail. Yet again, we've opened back up and able to travel. Sarah Cook is in Dubai as we speak with a Georgia Grown company. Brooks Made Products is over there, where our team is. Two of our marketing folks are managing a southeastern pavilion in Dubai. and Georgia grown products being sold to good people even as we speak. So
Well, that's great. Thank you. And what about the citrus industry? How is that going? That seems to be the next big market for.
it really is one of the major issues we have there is still we're reaching a time when we work with the nurseries. There's four, I believe there's 4 or 5 citrus nurseries in the state now. We've reached a deadline on the root stock that they have available to sell to people. We have reached a deadline where that root stock has to be certified by USDA so that we can be sure that it is clean. I know there's some root stock that is left over that the nursery industry is discussing whether they're going to, in unison, ask us to extend that deadline another 6 months so that those trees could actually get into the inventory. My plant folks are working with them. We'll just see. I don't have a definitive answer for you today. I'd like for us to be able to make that work if possible, but at the same time, these rules have been in place long enough that folks have known this was coming. But the citrus industry is growing. I thought Lindy did a fantastic job in the House Ag Committee meeting the other day. We're about 3,000 acres. Are we going to be 30,000 acres? Maybe. We might. It's going to be a lot more than just Satsuma oranges. Grapefruits are coming, some of the other varieties. And I think the university is well positioned to throw the resources of the land grant against that, this prospect. And I think it's mighty, mighty good. Got to make sure we're going to continue to make sure that we try to penetrate the school nutrition market with this citrus, because it just makes sense. It's local fruit, and hopefully our school nutrition folks are going to continue to embrace it. We've got Chairman Corbett's brother, Ken Corbett, is one of the smartest farmers I know, and we've all eaten those cuties, those little small mandarins. But Ken, a couple of years ago, he trademarked Besties, Besties. So Besties versus cuties. Whenever you see a Bestie, it's grown in Georgia or North Florida, and Ken's really doing a great job with the retail outlets there. So I think, Madam Chair, it does have a very bright future.
Thank you. And thank you for the job you're doing.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Thank y'all for letting me come in today.
Representative Tangley, I know you love citrus.
I have a question. I just have to make a comment, Commissioner, because we have a large citrus grower in Bullock County, Franklin Citrus Farms, and I like their name for those little cuties or besties, and it's Georgia Kisses.
He's got the Georgia Kiss. That's right.
Yeah,
Joe does a great job.
And they are experimenting, as you said, they're having much success with grapefruit and all sorts of varieties. And I understand that Florida is having a problem with greening. And so we're stepping up and producing and making up for the loss of citrus production in Florida. But we appreciate your efforts to help these folks out and promote our citrus industry. It is growing large.
Thank you, Madam Chair. That's one of the reasons we're trying to be so disciplined on the nursery stock, because we don't want to cut our nose off spider face. If we're going to get this industry started, we need to get started with clean, certified root stock, and we've got to be disciplined about that. But we're going to listen to the growers and to the needs through the nursery over these next 6 months. We'll see what happens, but otherwise, we've got a commitment from our department to make sure that when we start an industry, we want to finish it. We don't want to get stub our toe just when we're getting started on such a good product. So thank y'all.
Thank you.
I think we're going to skip down. I think forestry, we're going to go to forestry. I think Mr. Tim Littlemore has a meeting that he needs to get to. So we're just going to skip over the poultry diagnostic lab right now and go straight to forestry.
Thank you, Chairwoman Houston, and I certainly appreciate your consideration for my future schedule, but I'm exactly where I need to be right now, and thankful for that opportunity to be with your committee today. Before I get started, I was remiss in my comments during the amended fiscal year budgets not to thank Morgan Hall and your staff in the budget office. Morgan, during my first year of onboarding as the GFC director, was tremendous in fielding questions, and I hope I haven't used my allotment of questions in my first year. So thank you for your support and answering questions and helping getting me on board and dealing with it with those questions and just topics of discussion that I had. So, for those of you that are new to the Forestry Commission, our 550 employees for our state wake up every day to protect Georgia's forest resources, and they manage those forest resources working with private landowners. 91% of our forests are owned by non-industrial private landowners, just like you and I that are sitting around this room today. We protect those forests from wildfires, insects, disease, invasive species that are known and unknown. And I can just assure you that our agency and our team takes enormous pride and enormous responsibility for that task. And we realize that those forests are foundation to Georgia's forest products industry. And it's the #1 forest products industry in the nation. And that's something that you should be proud of. And it's something that we're proud of. And it's something that we take serious, and why we take our responsibility so serious. A few updates before I get into the budget. I just want to share with you, this body last year asked us to expand the existing carbon registry, the Georgia Carbon Registry, to include the accounting for carbon that is stored in buildings that are built with renewable materials, wood. That committee has met 3 times, and we're well on our way, and we tend to have that protocol in place by the end of the year. So just wanted to give the committee an update on that. In the past, this body has asked us to develop a timber harvesting notification system to create a uniform system for timber harvesters across our state to report timber harvesting operations to county governments. Prior to this system, there was a little bit of ambiguity in the way counties required timber harvesters to do that. Now they have an online system that they can use their mobile device and report their timber harvesting operation. That system is up and running on a voluntary basis right now, and it looks like it will be permanent by midsummer to late summer for all counties and for all timber harvesters in our state to use. So we're excited about that great efficiency opportunity for the sector. And so just wanted to make that report to you guys. I will turn my attention to the budget now in fiscal year 2023, the governor's recommendations. We're in section 26, 1.1 under administration. Most of the ads there are the enterprise ads, the $5,000 cost of living adjustment, the annual leave withdrawal payouts, and the 401k match. I heard it said earlier about the annual leave withdrawal and the 401k match. I think those 2 items sometimes get overlooked, but I think they're equally as important as the $5,000 raise for retention efforts and recruitment efforts to keep us first in class as an employer. So those you can see those are enterprise across our agency. You'll see on 26 1.16 there's a mention of a forest protection audit. I guess it was last January when I came on staff, came on the team. The Georgia Department of Audits was reviewing our forest protection department and giving us some findings. And the governor here mentions in his proposal, he just mentions it. And so we've gone out and gotten a quote for that from the Carl Vinson Institute, and they are asking $156,000 to do a staffing review for us. So I will give you that as option number 1. Option number 2 is something that I have thought about, and that is looking at doing an internal hire for a strategic initiatives role, and bringing that person in as a leadership capacity, senior staff level. Not only would they be able to accomplish the staffing review, but it would also build some needed and some additional bench strength for our organization. So there's two options there to how we could potentially address that performance audit finding and do a staffing review and to see how our resources are allocated across the state. So
Well, with your leadership team, would this sort of entice people to stay on longer if they saw that they could advance if you had?
absolutely. I mean, that's, you give someone I think giving someone a defined career path or career opportunity
Right. Uh-huh.
would certainly add to that, Chairwoman. Yes, absolutely. Under management 26.2.1, there's most of those are enterprise as well. That's the cost of living adjustment for $5,000 for personnel. 26.2.2 is the annual leave withdrawal. 26.2.3 is the ERS 401 match. And then I'll draw your attention to 26.2. There is a $24,000 line there for training and employee development. Our foresters are college graduates for the most part. They are registered and licensed, and many of them have to keep up with their continuing ed credits. We as an employer up to now struggle and don't do a really nice job of paying for those credits. I came from the private sector. I'm accustomed to being able to cover those kind of costs for your professional employees. That's what this would allow us to do in the future and to help with retention of those professional qualified employees. So grateful for that in the governor's budget. Under protection, 26.3.1 is 5,000 cost of living for our protection employees, and those are our wildland firefighters and the supporting staff for that department. 26.3.2 is the annual leave withdrawal payouts. 26.3.3 is your 401 match for that department. And then you'll see 26.3.6 are funds for operational funds that were shifted to a one-time federal grant. That's $385,282 that the governor has recommended, and we're thankful for that. That would replace funds that we moved as an agency, funds that we had received from Hurricane Michael, from the feds to support our operational expenses. So this will allow us to backfill that grant that now has expired or will be expiring with these funds to help support our operational cost for tractors, maintenance, fuel, and so forth. So
What was the total amount that we transferred out of forestry of that program? Does that cover the total amount
no, ma'am, that is not the total amount. The total amount, I believe, was,
of federal money that we transferred out?
just over $1 million.
Okay.
And we could give you that exact number, Mr. I have it in my file, but just,
Okay, but
just in
I
the
was
board of-
thinking it was more than 385,000. I know, and, okay.
I believe it's like 1.065, if I remember.
Oh.
I'm pulling from my memory. I can give you that direct number.
Maybe later on we can explain. Are y'all familiar with that? Okay, do you want to explain?
With that
it?
federal. So back during the austerity cuts in 2020, that the 8.4% cuts that were received, we were able to, because our agency receives federal funds, and Hurricane Michael had coincidentally happened at the same time, our agency received some federal funds for Hurricane Michael and from other grants. So we were able to shift funds that we had received, federal funds. We were able to allocate funds from that to cover some of our operating and labor cost to offset that 8.4 expense. And this committee, and my understanding is this committee and the Office of Planning and Budget and the governor's office were comfortable with us doing that at that period and point in time. And really, my understanding is it was a creative and a really an innovative way for us to continue to be able to serve our state. So yeah, and that, I think that number was like 1.065.
Okay.
Did I explain that well? Do I need to?
Yeah, but it was my understanding that eventually it was going to go back to forestry. I don't know. The 3-year grant, Morgan. Okay.
You want to? Let's see if Michelle can answer that question. Michelle Gray is our Director of Administration.
Well,
This is,
I know this was before you came on board, and Michelle, thank you so much for coming.
No problem. Thank you. The understanding was that the funds would be put back in our budget. That was our understanding. There was, just like he said, about $1.1 million that we shifted to federal grants so that we could avoid staffing cuts and different things like
Uh-huh.
that, and to cover those costs. So we were able to cover them with federal grants, but they are 3-year grants. So that is causing us to spend them a lot faster than we normally would. The Hurricane Michael, which y'all have covered, which the governor covered in his budget, replaces the one-time funds, but the ongoing grants are being spent down a lot faster than we would desire. So because we're still having to cover those expenses with those grants, if that makes sense.
No, not really. It doesn't to me. Does it make sense to y'all? Well, we'll have this discussion for a later date. What about that? We can really dig down into it and have this for a later date.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, thank you for raising that issue, Madam Chairman, and we certainly will give you the information that you need to.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate the job you're doing. And one thing too, getting back to the audit report, and we had 2 things, but we need to talk with y'all. I trust your judgment and doing what you think is best for forestry, because I know you're very qualified, and you said they had the two different programs, and I feel like it should be up to him to decide what he thinks is best for the way he spends it. I don't know what Carl Vinson was going to do for the difference in the two, but the difference in what you need. And I feel like we're going to have to give some kind of, I don't know if it's how much money do you think if you went to phase 2 program 2 instead of 1?
So, yeah, so I think it's equal amount of dollars. And if I
Equal
had,
amount of
yeah,
dollars.
and if I had the choice, I mean, you're looking at the Carl Vinson study was 156 plus, because they said there potentially could be some additional charges. So that's where that's at. And looking at bringing on someone at a senior level for strategic initiatives to focus on staffing review and resource allocation, I think you're looking at the same ballpark number for stat with salary and fringe.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am. On an annual basis.
All right. But I think that decision is left up to you,
Okay.
and it's not something that the committee should make.
And I certainly appreciate that.
Does everybody agree? I think we have utmost confidence in your judgment.
Thank you.
Any questions? No questions. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much.
Dr. Zavala. Good morning.
I think I'm gonna have your full attention.
Oh, you do. You do it all. Thank you so much for coming.
You're welcome.
Dr. Zavala is with the Poultry Veterinary Diagnostic Lab. And you'll find that in your
At 13.5.
it's 13.5. It'll be on page 2.
Right. Well, Madam Chairman, Morgan, and committee, thank you for inviting me today. I don't have a long report. Basically, what's happened is we had a repair on our new building done in 2018 and finished in 2020, as you probably know. That was a big deal. I have to report that our building works better than it ever has. That repair was successful, very complicated and highly technical, but successful. So we have our fingers crossed. And most of the repairs had to do with the BSL-3, which is our high containment lab. In case we get a bird flu into the state, we have to work under containment conditions. So the repair was geared towards that. Unfortunately, the repair came with cost of post-repair maintenance, and GSFIC strongly encouraged us to make this request because of all the new equipment that they installed. And they also strongly recommend that we do a lot more calibration and verifications of the system all the time, twice to 3 times a year. So we presented to OPB a breakdown of those expenses and basically accept the governor's recommendation of $180,000 a year to maintain that building. So that's our request, ongoing starting in FY23.
Representative Golick.
Yeah, so you said you did the, I guess, the upgrade or whatever back in 2018 to 2020. How much, do you have just a ballpark what that cost?
That was $3 million.
3 million. So we're trying to not have to go through something like that again. This is really the 180 to continue to maintain it.
Exactly.
And calibrate it so that
Exactly.
we don't have a one-time large cost
Yeah,
like that.
GSFIC's words were, we don't want to erode what we've just done. You
Okay.
know, we just have to make sure that we have it calibrated and maintained a lot more aggressively than we did before, especially with the new equipment.
So this is an ongoing cost that you see annually too, right?
Correct.
Because- okay.
Correct.
Well, I've got a question. I think you requested more than we have in the budget, correct?
I did.
Uh,
We requested 225 and 180 is in the governor's budget. 225 is actually what it's going to cost us. So I'd rather get 225, but but 180 is what ended up in the, I think what they considered was some ongoing cost, which was part of the 225, and that's why they cut it. But hey, if you have the money, I'd rather have 225.
I didn't know what the difference was. I didn't know if you were
Yeah.
planning on leaving out something in here.
You know, we
or-
have I think from what I could see, the building automating system we have, the Siemens system that runs the building is very expensive to run. And part of that was ongoing before the repair. So I think they considered that an ongoing. And that's why they took that out. I think the majority of what they took out is the Siemens building automation system expense associated with the building. We still have to spend it.
Mhm.
You know, we still have to pay for it. It's just a very, very technical building to run. Another thing that came into play that really surprised us is all the way through the repair, the experts were telling us, this building is going to be so well calibrated that your power bill is going to go down. Well, it didn't go down. It went up a little bit. And the reason it went up a little bit is because we have to be in BSL-3. We have to be high containment mode all the time. Before that, we could turn it on and off. Now we have to be in high containment all the time in that lab. So the power bill did not go down. So that was not something that we anticipated. We thought that we could save a little on power, but didn't.
Well, I tell you, that building has been a problem, hasn't it?
Well, it's just, I don't know. It's just so complex, a high containment.
Yeah.
And now with the threat, and you've probably all heard about the threat of bird flu right now, we're literally on pins and needles waiting for that first case in Georgia because it's in the waterfowl, and we had a case in Kentucky and this week. So we're on high alert. And the National Animal Health Laboratory System wants us to use the BSL-3. You know, they say that labs that have a high containment lab need to use it in an event. So
Well,
that repair was important.
does the lab in Tifton have a high containment lab?
They have a very small area that could be, well, yes, the Tifton Veterinary Diagnostic Lab has a space. It does. There's another space that could be commissioned, but I think it wasn't. So
So
there
we
is
could-
space in Tifton,
There's
yes.
space in it. Is it up and going? Is it ready in case we
I
need it?
believe it is. That's part of the UGA lab, the veterinary diagnostic lab. I believe that it is up and going, yes.
Okay. So in case you needed a backup, you've got
Yes.
somebody to help you.
Or if the event was down there, if we had a case on a poultry farm down in South Georgia, chances are a lot of that, we'd split the samples no matter what, but they would get a lot of them directly in Tifton.
Mhm. Okay.
Yeah.
We've got a lot of poultry places in South Georgia now too.
Yes, yes, absolutely.
I thought it was really interesting that having we're not gonna have enough chicken wings for the Super Bowl. I guess you heard that and
Yeah.
everybody was complaining and somebody explained to folks that chickens don't have but 2 wings.
Be nice to have a 4-wing chicken, but
Well, thank you, and thank you for coming down and explaining what you need. And if any of y'all would like to go visit the poultry lab,
oh, please
they'll be
come. Yeah,
happy to show you around.
thank you for your consideration. I
Thank
appreciate
you.
it.
Thank you so much. I think we ought to try to get that's. Do I have any questions? Well, the meeting's adjourned.